Number 10. Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined, bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9. Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords. Number 8. Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park. Number 7. Punchline. Also called Alexis K, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio, and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6. Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years. It's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the Netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff, and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together, and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5. Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls black bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. It's kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4. Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon, and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3. Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2. Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1. Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second, dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash, before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
Number 10. Sapphire Styx. Sapphire Styx was a mutant villain powerful enough to turn Wolverine unconscious with her life-threatening powers. Her abilities allow her to steal the energy and life force of those she makes physical contact with, typically through kissing them. Kind of like Rogue, but without the power and memory absorption, and if she leaned into the harmful elements of her powers a little more. Sapphire did just that, and it is implied that she has been able to stay healthy and young for hundreds of years using her mutant ability. I love when we have like mutant vampirism. I love those powers. It's also believed she is powerful enough that she could use her mutant ability to kill her victims depending on her target's power level and resistance, of course. In the end, she was defeated and killed by Psylocke, who used her powers to avenge all the souls that Sapphire had ever drained, shattering her. Psylocke then used Sapphire's soul energy to rebuild her own body, becoming Betsy once more. Number 9. Knockout. Knockout has only made a few appearances in the comics since her first appearance in the 90s, but she is still a pretty deadly female villain and is super badass. She has worked within both the villainous supergroup of the Femizons and the Femme Fatales. More recently, she was seen once again fighting alongside the Femme Fatales. Knockout is a mutant whose powers powers are enhanced strength, endurance, and durability. She's a skilled enough fighter that she was able to make quick work of Mutant Rogue when she faced her briefly in Hunt for Wolverine, Mystery in Madripoor. Number 8. Lady Mastermind. We could talk about both for this point, but I've decided to focus on Reagan Wingard, who popped up in Dawn of X, as opposed to Martinique, who is also the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind. Mastermind OG. Even when it seems like Reagan has not been strong enough when it comes to her mutant powers to achieve the desired effect on her victims, she has proven skilled and resourceful enough to find a way to push through any mental blocks or willpower that those she targets possess. Her mutant powers allow her to create realistic illusions that in fact can even trick your body into responding to them as if they were real, meaning that her illusions can actually kill you. Yikes. Unlike her father, her powers also do not require her full and devout concentration to work. Lady Mastermind's illusions will persevere even if she goes unconscious, which is pretty powerful. She's basically like way more powerful than her dad. And before we move on to our next spot, time for the most YouTube of moments where I ask you to kindly click that like. Pretty please? Number 7. Yelena Belova. Yelena Belova has always been the rival to Black Widow since way back when she was training in the Red Room Academy. She always aimed to be the best of the best and was driven crazy by her obsession to become the best operative out there. Belova at one point had her face swapped with Natasha's against her will, so that Nat could prove a point to her, basically that being a spy wasn't that great, to help convince her to come over to the good side of things, sort of. Belova will likely play a much less villainous role in the MCU, but in comics she has often been known as an antagonist to Black Widow. And she also has been Black Widow before. Although she is usually manipulated into being a villain, and the most evil thing about her is generally her competitiveness with Natasha, which we've already seen will be addressed in the Black Widow film, just based on the trailer. Belova has also acted as an ally to Natasha on occasion as well, despite the fact that she has lots of reasons to hate her. So yeah, it depends on what you're reading. If she can be a villain, she can sort of be not really a hero, but an ally. She can be a hero in her own way. Number 6. Lady Bullseye. Maki Matsumoto is known for being one of the fastest fighters around. She is both believed to be faster than the Kingpin and Bullseye, who inspired her to become a killer under the same mantle, and Bullseye, who in fact inspired her to become a killer under that same mantle. She was saved by Bullseye when she was a little girl, who the Yakuza intended to sell for their own means. Bullseye, however, was tasked with wiping out those who would be responsible for her and many other victims' sale, and killed them before they could do so. Lady Bullseye is a skilled fighter, trained in wielding many different types of weapons, and proficient in many different kinds of martial arts. Oh, she also is apparently a lawyer, or at least understands law well enough to pose as one. She's both worked with Kingpin and successfully defeated him in combat, which I think is pretty impressive. Kingpin is not an easy person to defeat in a fight. Number 10. Jared Leto. While Jared Leto's version of the Joker in Suicide Squad may not have been the most well received, the fact remains that Jared Leto is widely regarded to be a pretty attractive man. His version of the Joker came off as being a very manic millennial gangster and was for most a little too manic. But Leto's Joker should get some bonus points for giving us a very tattooed up version of this villain. At the very least, to most, tattoos are considered pretty sexy, and fans of Jared Leto likely still can't see him as anything but the lovable, somewhat of a jerk, illiterate teen heartthrob that was Jordan Catalano. Jordan Catalano, although pretty terrible, was pretty baby. Number 9. Jokester. This version of Joker comes to us from Earth 3. He is actually a good guy, which is part of what adds to his appeal. This version of the Joker was known by the name Jackie. He was an underdog and struggling comedian who stood up to the corrupt vigilante Owlman. Taking a stand against Owlman, who Jackie actually knew to be a murderer, he made him the target of the jokes in his comedy act. The police and people of Gotham saw Jackie as a sort of hero for standing up to Owlman, but his heroism came at a cost. Owlman got revenge by giving Jackie a Glasgow smile and killing his manager Harley Quinn. This drove Jackie insane, making him only have eyes for destroying Owlman and his sidekick Talon. Number 8. DC Bombshells. In the world of DC Bombshells, Joker is often referred to by Harley as Mr. J. Mr. J was Harley's ex-lover who Harley left after she felt he was changing for the worse due to alcoholism and an obsession with potions. For this, however, the two were very happy together, surviving the Great Depression through becoming thieves. Sort of a Bonnie and Clyde type vibe. They took from the rich and even sometimes helped out others with the wealth that they stole. And it's for this less harmful and more originally lovable side of this alternate that we can consider him somewhat hot.
Number 7. Scandal Savage, a recent addition. She first debuted in Villains United #1 in 2005, created for the supervillain team The Secret Six. She's the daughter of Vandal Savage and some Brazilian woman, and she's a lesbian. I'm not just bringing that up to bring it up. Her creator Gail Simone brings it up all the time. And in 2005, it was a big deal. She has the deadly skill set, the costume with the crop top, making it fashionable for this era, the cleavage, the peekaboo mask. Scandal was an interesting character. The whole Secret Six was a fun comic that brought out the best in its characters. It gave the world a credible Catman again, and a cool Deadshot. It was going places, but it was sadly swallowed up by the New 52 reboot, and Scandal kind of fell by the wayside. Gail Simone got swept up to write Batgirl and retconned her legs, which she was long salty about, then moved on. Scandal, easily collectible in a few trades.
Number 6. All-Star Joker. The Joker of Earth 31 from All-Star Batman and Robin and The Dark Knight Returns is just super jacked. What's even crazier is later on in his story when we see him, this version of the Joker is meant to be in his 50s, and yet he still looks super ripped. This version of the Joker also has a giant dragon tattoo on his back that extends onto his bicep. What can I say? I'm a sucker for some nice tattoos. And while this Joker is still positively insane, although he might have you believe otherwise, and evil, he still somehow manages to appear to be in great shape physically.
Number 5. Silver Sable. She first debuted in The Amazing Spider-Man number 265 back in 1985. She is not Black Cat. Sometimes people mix the two up because they both have white hair and they just assume that somebody got a costume change. No. Now she can be an anti-hero, but is most often a bit more on the villain side. Do you like the 80s? Do you like headbands? Do you like a woman who shoots first and asks questions later as long as you're not the one being shot? Then get excited. Silver Sable actually has an annual diplomatic dinner with Dr. Doom. Their nations border each other. Hers is Simcaria. She does all that she does with no superpowers. She hunts Nazis, but will also kill for money. She was inspired by a pack of Safari cards that the editor Tom DeFalco bought, so her team was called the Wild Pack. She was popular enough for a time to be adapted into the 90s animated Spider-Man series, but over time she's kind of faded. We have other hot lady mercenaries, but you needed to know about Silver Sable. You're welcome.
Number 4. Harleen. I can't say this enough. If you have not read this book, you really need to read it. It really is a great dive into how Harley got pulled in by the dark and twisted villain that is the Joker, by this obsession with fixing him and then just kind of accepting him for the truly broken person and vile criminal that he is. The attraction to Joker in this book is how he's drawn. He's definitely more handsome than usual, but psychologically it's all about that draw to the dark, broken side of people and of ourselves, and the rush of adrenaline we feel both when we are falling in love, but also when we are in danger, and how being addicted to that rush can actually blur the lines between those two very different experiences. The Joker is still evil here, he's still a bad guy, but you can see why Dr. Harleen Quinzel falls for him. It's still very alarming, but it's also kind of hot. Number 3. 2015 Secret Wars Selene. In the reality of the 2015 Secret Wars, Earth 19947, Selene is allied once more with Sebastian Shaw, and is also part of God Emperor Doom's court. She only appears briefly in issue 2 of Secret Wars, but I love her look here. Also, the artwork, which is Asad Rabish, the same artist as the one for the Loki series where the alternate Hela I mentioned appears. It is very classic Selene, her appearance here. Her wardrobe here is very classic Selene, much like Madeline Pryor's is also, and a look we haven't really seen Selene return to recently. This look is her in a corseted top with a black headband and cape. Black Queen, so of course all black everything. One can assume she also might be wearing thigh-high black lace-up boots, and she also wears long black gloves and a black thong. Selene is the epitome of power and sexiness. I also just love her in a cape. I love everyone in a cape. Cape and thigh-high boots for everybody. Number 2. Bianca Steeplechase. This version of the Joker comes to us from the Thrill Killer series, the alternate Earth 37. In this reality, Joker is a woman and a criminal known as Bianca Steeplechase. While still being quite evil, this version of the Joker seems to be much kinder to her Harley Quinn, has striking green eyes that are much more alluring than the main continuity's these green peepers, and loves to wear low-cut or dramatically unbuttoned shirts. Once you see this version of the Joker, you'll never look at the main continuity one the same way again. Number 1. Gotham. In Gotham, we have two Jokers, twin brothers known as Jeremiah and Jerome Velasca. Originally, it seemed that the deranged and evil brother Jerome was set up to become the Joker in the show. Jeremiah had escaped his brother and run off to the circus, changing his name to hide from him. He claimed that Jeremiah had tortured and tormented him when they were both children, but in the end, it was revealed that this may have been less than true. After his brother's death, Jeremiah was exposed to laughing venom that unleashed his own inner madness, and allowed him to begin his own transformation into the Joker. Since then, Jeremiah has been exposed to that famous vat of Ace chemicals, which left him severely disfigured and scarred. But prior to this change in his appearance, both he and his identical brother were fairly handsome, and originally appeared to be the most attractive live-action depiction of the Joker we've seen yet. Both characters are of course played by the same actor on Gotham, the talented Cameron Monaghan.
Number 10. Malice. From Marvel. There are multiple characters who have held this name. The first two Malices were Black Panther villains attached to Killmonger, but the version I'm going with is Sue Storm's evil split personality. Sue Storm is the fourth incarnation of Malice. The third was a Ghost Rider villain. So Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, was manipulated by the Psycho Man into having the negative aspects of her personality manifest. You know, the bitterness of the years of neglect from Reed, and also her miscarriage. At the time, her second child, that pregnancy had not come to fruition. This would be later semi-retcon and they would succeed in having a second child, though it would be difficult, and this would be Valeria. However, Sue was very hurt by all the things that were going on. Slowly, she began to change. Her powers were upped, and she began to use them more offensively. She also changed her name from the Invisible Girl to the Invisible Woman. She also got a sexier costume, and well, the people weren't having it because she was a mom after all, and moms aren't allowed to be sexy. Marvel is a no-MILF zone, or rather, tasteful MILFs. Honestly, part of the Malice explanation came in response to her costume. A boob window, cleavage at all? A lot of this could have been explained as her anger and her grief, but no. Also, Reed slapped her across the face after playing into her insecurities that he is well aware of, but at the time was just choosing not to be a better husband. This is to snap her out of it. Now, Sue Storm is attractive no matter what, but Malice had all that evil going on. Sue still fights her in her subconscious sometimes, but we aren't getting that boob window back. Number 9. Lady Deathstrike. Do you like your ladies enhanced, murderous, out to kill? Then introducing Lady Deathstrike. She first appeared as Deathstrike in Alpha Flight number 33 back in 1986. Before that, her first appearances as a character was in Daredevil number 197 back in 1983. Her original name was Yuriko, and she hates Wolverine, and her hatred of him drove her to become Deathstrike. Though this was after she had first tried to take him down. She was enhanced on Mojo World actually. Deathstrike has a dangerous thing going on, but still with plenty of cleavage. She'll kill you, but you'll get a nice view while it happens, and that's what matters. In all seriousness, she's a cool character, and the design is cool. The giant fingers, the samurai inspired garb, it's a look. Some say she's just a female Wolverine, but to them I say, how dare you? That's X-23. She's managed to find her way into adaptation, and her vengeance and rage will make her a character remembered for years to come. Number 8. Nocturna. So Nocturna had two origins, one pre-crisis and one post. The pre-crisis is from Batman number 363 back in 1983, and post-crisis is from Robin number 100 in 2002. Both versions dummy thick. One of her aliases is Mistress of the Night. She's a very blink and you'll miss her type of character. I mean, when you come back as a villain for Tim Drake in his solo outing, that's bound to happen. She was actually supposed to be adapted into Batman the Animated Series, the seminal series from the 90s. However, she proved too risque. This was because she was going to be a vampire. They approved of the hot model, that's a quote, but the bloodletting and showing blood and showing Batman lusting for blood because he was going to turn to a vampire briefly in the episode, that was too far. It was a kids show, and at the time showing blood was still a taboo. Now they show blood all the time. Still, no matter the era, one of the focuses was always on how hot she was. She was also friends with spoiler Stephanie Brown. That's not saying that is a spoiler, that was her name. She's not really a huge focus, but come on, people want their thirst. Little vampire pun for you.
Number 7. Healing Witch Poison Ivy. In the comic Batman/Demon A Tragedy, Poison Ivy appears as a healer who aims to heal Bruce of his allergy to moonlight. She senses a dark presence within him and gives him an herbal treatment to help weaken the evil entity residing within him. This version of Ivy is like a mix of a naturopath meets a witch, appearing with voluminous and disheveled fiery locks covered in grass and flowers, wearing a small leafy bustier and a grass skirt. I also just love her nails. They're painted red and super pointy. She has big green eyes, a dramatic pouty lip and a tiny little button nose. Sadly, this alternate version of Ivy is killed by Etrigan, who ends up being revealed as the Bat Demon who has been possessing Bruce.
Number 6. Cheetah. Arguably the most well-known Wonder Woman baddie, Cheetah has something for all the furries out there. I'll take this list places. You want hot? I'll give you all the hot. Kelly is scripting hot men right now. I believe I heard her call Wolverine a tiny knuckle of muscle. Now what you may not know is that there have actually been 4 cheetahs. We're going to be looking at the 3rd cheetah, Barbara Ann Minerva. She debuted in Wonder Woman Volume 2 number 7 back in 1987. Before that, Cheetah was just a woman in a costume. Amateurs. Her origin is actually pretty tragic. She was an archaeologist who took part in an ancient ritual as she believed she would gain immortality. It involved a female cheetah guardian. She drank human blood, ingested the berries of the plant god, Cartaga, which I had to pause to say, it's quite the name. But here's the thing, the ritual was supposed to be done with a virgin, and well, she wasn't one. This resulted in her part transforming in a way that was part curse and part blessing. So she was left in pain in her human form and with a crazed bloodlust in her cheetah form. So she was doomed to wander in this way. Obviously, she chooses her cheetah form far more often because she doesn't want to be in pain. My question has always been, where are her nipples? I mean, I know why they're not there, censorship, but it was always weird to me that you don't see the nipples. I mean, on furred animals you can see them. They should be there. Or they should just give her a jumpsuit. Oh look, they gave her a jumpsuit. Also, there is a male cheetah, but this is not hot male villains. No, get out of here, Sebastian.
Number 5. Titania. Titania is Mary McFerrin, a girl who was known for her small stature and often mocked for it when she was young and aspired to become something greater than what she felt she was born into. After being offered powers by supervillain Dr. Doom, she was transformed into the powerhouse known as Titania. Titania has been shown to be skilled and strong enough to defeat a whole wheelhouse of powerful superheroes, including Luke Cage and Iron Fist, as well as The Thing and Mr. Fantastic. She's also kicked the butt of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, is faster than a speeding bullet and Mjolnir itself, and can take a direct hit from the mythical hammer and be left completely unfazed by it. Now, some of this went on while her powers were boosted, admittedly, but either way, Titania is not a villain you'd want to face in a fistfight. I would not want to face her in a fistfight because my face would get punched into the next, into the nega zone. I'd be gone. You'd have no face left. Yikes. Number 4. Madam Hydra. Madam Hydra has close ties to quite a few superheroes and other famous villains, and we also for a time have known her under the codename Viper, which is also very important indeed given her obsession with snake venom in addition to other toxins and poisons. Madam Hydra's legal name is Ophelia Sarkinson, and like her codename implies, she is often known for being a ruler of Hydra and as a member of their High Council. She has close ties to Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, who she has fought against and also sought to re-recruit, Wolverine, whom she was married to, and obviously Captain America, because Hydra. So yeah. As I said, Madam Hydra is fond of poisons, toxins, and venoms, and as such generally employs them for use as weapons through projectiles and even her lipstick. She also possesses near toxin immunity, which she obtained through frequent and carefully measured exposure. I wish that was true. What if you had actually, isn't that kind of how allergies work? Can't you be exposed to them in small amounts and then you can overcome your allergy? I don't know if that's true, but that might be true. It might be science. Don't try that if you're allergic to something and you die. Don't do it though, because I think then it doesn't work. Number 3. Moonstone. Like many of the deadliest and most villainous women in Marvel, Moonstone is really just a woman looking to put herself before others. She's always out to get what she needs first, which generally makes her a villain. But there have been times when Carla Sofin has both posed as a hero and also truly tried to be a hero. She was part of Baron Zemo's Thunderbolts, built out of his Masters of Evil team, and rebranded in disguise as superheroes, following the apparent destruction of most of Earth's heroes by Onslaught. Following this, the Thunderbolts did attempt to truly become heroes under the leadership of Hawkeye, whom Carla started a relationship with. Moonstone was also the Miss Marvel equivalent to Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers team, acting far more villainously once more. She can manipulate gravity, making her super powerful and allowing her to basically augment much of her own abilities, including durability, strength, and speed. She can even turn herself invisible using her gravity manipulation, and she can teleport. Number 2. Mystique. One of the deadliest women out there when it comes to female villains has got to be my girl, Mystique. The best thing about Mystique too is she's really a relatable villain because a lot of times she's kind of just looking out for number 1, herself. Wow, did I just say she's relatable and then I talked about how selfish she was? I guess I think people are all selfish to an extent, which is true. I think we are all selfish at times. And sometimes Mystique also just behaves evilly to look out for those she legitimately cares for, like her now dead wife Destiny and their adopted daughter Rogue, whether or not Rogue actually wants her help or protection. And so that is definitely relatable, I think. Looking out for other people, even sometimes when people are like, I don't want your help, and you're like, well, I'm still gonna help you because I love you. Her shape-shifting powers means that she can pose as pretty much anyone, and her skills in disguise and impersonation help to smooth over these appearances, allowing her to even move and act like those whom she adopts the identity of. Not only that, but Mystique is a skillful fighter and manipulator, so she's not someone you want to get on the bad side of. Trust me, other people have, and they have been backstabbed so many times, their back is basically like a knife block at this point. Yikes. Number 1. Hela. Hela is one of the most deadly villains when she wants to be. Like Mystique, Hela isn't always a villain. She's not inherently evil, but is capable of great evil if it is something that is needed for her to get what she needs or wants. As the ruler of Hell, she is immensely powerful when it comes to her magic and her physical strength as well. She's also a necromancer, being ruler of Hell, though she isn't someone who enjoys torturing the souls over which she rules or manipulating them into doing her bidding, unless, once again, it serves some greater purpose for her. Still, Hela is not someone you want to get on the bad side of, and more recently, as we've seen her ally herself with Thanos, we've seen an even more malevolent side of her. So many deadly women and women who even rule over the dead. Number 10. Black Cat. Black Cat is only rounding out the bottom of this list because she is so ever changing when it comes to her alignment and so much more complicated of a character to be considered either a hero or a villain, really. But she definitely is a very capable and dangerous criminal, when she needs to be, or when she wants to be, which is why she still makes the cut. When it comes to going up against Black Cat, odds are good you probably don't want to. In fact, she might not even be someone you want as an ally, considering that Black Cat could in fact be ready to double cross you at a moment's notice. Felicia Hardy is definitely one of the most dangerous thieves around when it comes to Marvel Comics, making her one of the publisher's most deadly, sometimes villain. Number 9. Bloodlust. Bloodlust was one of the villainesses that ended up joining the Femme Fatales. The Femme Fatales were an all-female supervillain group who were for a time working alongside Superia's Femizons in a plot to take over the world. She would end up being a mutant who lost her powers on M-Day, but when she did have them, they were very similar to Wolverine and X-23's. Bloodlust, whose real name is Beata Dubiel, actually predates X-23 in terms of her first appearance. Pretty cool facts. She first appeared in the comics in Marvel Comics Presents in 1990. After she lost her powers though, she became a skilled assassin who fought with small, stiletto-like blades. Powered, Bloodlust was believed to be as strong and deadly as Wolverine. Depowered, she was still a skilled enough fighter to give Domino a run for her money. Before we move on to our next number, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It really does help us out. Number 8. Emma Frost. Emma Frost is only ranking so low on the list because she is a reformed villain now in the comics, but that doesn't mean that she is any less deadly now that she is a hero. As a villain, she managed to swap bodies with Storm and infiltrate the X-Men. As a mutant and a person, Emma is so skilled and so badass that she even manages to use other mutant skills better than even they can. Like when she swapped bodies with Iceman and showed him up. Beyond that though, even just as a woman, not even considering her especially strong diamond form or masterful telepathic powers, Emma is pretty remarkable and dangerous. She's just a powerhouse who knows how to bargain when it comes to business dealings and relishes the power she wields as the White Queen of the Hellfire Trading Company, and formerly the Hellfire Club, because that's what the trading company used to be. But anyways, now the Hellfire Club is a bunch of kids that are villains, so modern time comics. Number 7. Mind Blast. We are going back to the Femme Fatales for a little bit here. This member of the team was actually first introduced in the 90s in Amazing Spider-Man issue 340. She is not only a mutant but also a cyborg. Her mutant powers grant telekinetic abilities which she can use to fly and manipulate other objects. In addition, she also possesses the power of telepathy via her cybernetic enhancements, which grant her telepathic shielding and allow her to create quite convincing psychic illusions. Convincing enough to lure some of the X-Men, including Psylocke, into a trap. Which in my mind, if you're tricking Psylocke with like telepathic illusions, you're pretty good. Number 6. Elektra. Elektra is one of the most skilled and dangerous women out there, both when she's acting as a villain and when she's acting even as a hero. Like Emma, she also ranks a little bit lower due to the fact that she is currently attempting to prove she can be good and operating under the codename Daredevil. So not super villainous right now. However, part of the appeal with Elektra is while an ally to Daredevil, she has never been completely good, and in general is considered as more being a villain than a hero. Initially, she didn't possess any powers, but was an incredibly skilled fighter, assassin, and ninja. Since being resurrected by the Hand, however, she does have some powers. She can low-key possess other people's minds, using this to track down her targets. It's also been revealed that she has other mental and telepathic abilities and fighting techniques. Gotta love those mental fighting techniques. Mental screams. Ah! This is why I should never get any kind of sonic scream, because I would just sound ridiculous. Not my mutant power. Okay. Number 5. Kandra. Kandra is part of the Externals, and as such has spent a good amount of her comic book history being a pretty powerful villain. The Externals are immortals who can't be killed, except on the rare occasion when they can. Because comics. And because I mean, hey, every character has to have a weakness. For Externals, they can be killed by having another external kill them if their hearts are consumed by said foe. Kandra is an immensely powerful telekinetic who also possesses some telepathic abilities, but she is also just deadly because of how ruthless she is and because of all of her connections, because she's so old. She not only is powerful in her own right, but also holds sway over other powerful mutants and allies. By the way, Externals are different from Eternals, in case you were wondering, though both are godlike but in different ways. And both are from Marvel, which is confusing. But yeah, Externals, Eternals. Number 4. Veranki. Queen Veranki is the main antagonist of the Secret Invasion storyline. Disguised as Spider-Woman, she, along with many of her undercover Skrulls, managed to infiltrate and, in secret, invade Earth. Hence the name of the story, Secret Invasion. Veranki is less about killing and more about conquering, but usually when it comes to conquering a planet, you know, you're probably gonna have to break a few eggs, and when I say break a few eggs, I mean kill a few humans. As a Skrull, Veranki is capable of shapeshifting. She also can employ a special Skrull ritual in order to grant herself the memories and powers of those she is impersonating. And of course, as a queen, she also has armies at her beck and call. Or she did, until she was ultimately defeated and killed by one of the most evil characters in Marvel Comics and one of the most deadliest male villains, Norman Osborn. Also, where's my deadly male villain list? Number 3. Madeline Pryor. Also known as the Goblin Queen. Madeline Pryor was a pilot in Alaska who won Scott Summers' heart in part because, well, she looked exactly like his thought dead ex-teammate and lover, Jean Grey. You know, nothing gets someone going like being like, wait, you look like someone that just died that I was in love with. Oh, I'm so into this. I'd be like, I'm so traumatized by you, I definitely don't want to be around you. But hey, to each their own. It was later revealed to comic readers and Maddie herself after she married Scott and had a child with him that she was in fact Jean's clone, created using a piece of the Phoenix Force by Mr. Sinister, as part of a plot to create the perfect mutant, her son, baby Christopher, who'd grow up to become Nathan Summers, aka Cable. Mr. Sinister intended to steal the baby for himself and then destroy Maddie, having no further need for her. That's so rude. When she discovered she was Jean's clone and that Sinister was her creator, she ended up suffering from a mental break that in essence turned her evil. She made a pact with a demon and planned on sacrificing her son and other children in order to gain power, but ended up being stopped by the X-Factor and the X-Men teams. She has been thought dead, and actually dead, a few times in the comics, and made a recent return in 2020's Hellion series. And then we all realized, oh yeah, we totally forgot that Madeline Pryor is still alive and has been for a while. I'm sorry. I feel bad for her. She returned as a villain once more, and after her return was shortly thereafter defeated and is now presumed dead. But only time will tell if that remains true. Number 2. Harpy. And more specifically, Red Harpy, as you may have noticed from our thumbnail for this video. Harpy is basically the evil version of Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's love interest and ex-wife. Harpy came into being when MODOK used gamma radiation to transform her into a winged monster, who would make a pretty fitting opponent opponent for the Hulk. Her exposure to gamma radiation not only made her the amazingly strong green monster known as the Harpy, but also drove Betty insane, making it easy for MODOK to manipulate her and use her to do his bidding. After becoming Red She-Hulk, we'd later also see an even more horrific version of Harpy when Betty returned as the immortal Red Harpy. Harpy in general is considered to be one of the strongest villains around and is strong enough to take on the Hulk face to face in a fight. One-on-one. She can also heal, fly, and possesses razor-sharp claws and talons. Number 1. Saturnine. That's Magistrix Opal Luna Saturnine to you. Also known as the White Witch, Saturnine is likely one of the most deadly villains on this list, considering just how powerful she is, and just how unpredictable she is. Of course, you still have a chance of getting past her if she happens to be in a particularly good mood. The thing about Saturnine is that she isn't outright evil. She's more of an all-powerful character who becomes a powerful villain simply because she wants to have fun, or because she wants something that others refuse to grant her. She can be both a powerful ally and a powerful enemy, but you definitely do not want her as an enemy. Trust me. Saturnine is a deadly magic user who comes armed with the magic of Otherworld, and as the Omniversal Guardian and Magistrix is basically god level when it comes to the mischief that she is capable of.
Number 5. Hela, Goddess of Death. I know we normally call Hela the Goddess of Death, that is one of her titles in the main continuity of Earth 616, but this alternate of her from Earth 94001 is also known as the Goddess of Death. She comes to us from a reality where Loki ends up as the ruler of Asgard, but that's not the only difference in this reality. Hela also sports a different look. As opposed to her full-length bodysuit, she wears a sleeveless bodysuit more akin to a play suit or like a swimming suit. She also wears a mask that covers her hair and has a dramatic high-necked cape with thorns emerging from the back of it. Also, thigh-high boots, my fave. This version of Hela is also quite curvy and intimidating looking in comparison to Loki. She just looks like a big, powerful, and strong goddess here, and I am loving it. Actually, I love a lot of the ways the women are drawn in this comic.
Number 4. Typhoid Mary. She is genuinely an awful villainess. She first debuted as Typhoid Mary in Daredevil number 254 back in 1988. She's kinda sympathetic, we'll get to it. She started as a Daredevil villain and would expand to become a Spider-Man and Deadpool one as well. She raped Deadpool, never forget. I certainly haven't. She was a former lover of the Daredevil and has some low-level psionic abilities. Typhoid Mary is genuinely unstable, and she was actually created accidentally by the Daredevil when he was trying to take down a brothel and was stunned when the woman in it attacked him. He accidentally knocked her out of a window, and so she vowed never to let a man hurt her again. In fact, she would hurt them first. Typhoid Mary has range and has multiple personalities, with the Typhoid one being one of the most aggressive. She also kills domestic abusers, only the men though. Listen, she's genuinely bad, but they always draw her super hot, so hottest. I mean, when I did Scary Aliens, you all didn't want to believe Starfire was scary because she was too hot. Well, Typhoid Mary is hot too. Are you gonna take the risk because she's got a two-face thing going on? Just so aggressive in this video. I'm really passionate about evil hot women.
Number 3. Jokers. On Earth 9, the Joker persona was actually shared by 3 women: Mary Marvel, Lori Lamaris, and Christy Xanadu, Earth 9's Madame Xanadu. On this Earth, the Jokers were an anachronistic vigilante group operating under one name and identity, the Joker. They were part of a group who tried to take down Superman after he had become the most powerful superhero on Earth and had outlawed all other vigilantes. Unfortunately, Superman caught Mary Marvel and managed to use her mind to discover the other identities of the Joker. All 3 of these ladies are attractive, powerful women, and the fact that their Joker was an anachronistic hero just adds to their appeal. Earth 9 is the alternate universe belonging to the DC imprint Tangent Comics.
Number 2. Nightshade. She first appeared in Captain America number 164 back in 1973 and used to be called Dr. Nightshade and Deadly Nightshade. Discovering as a young girl that she has a knack for science, she decided to use it for evil. She focuses on creating a werewolf army. Yes. And you know what she's got going on? Pheromones. She could use them to control men through science. She forced Captain America to fight Falcon, and also just help her in general, but he resisted real hard. She has also created a serum to turn men into women, and as always, she is on that werewolf army game. Capwolf. She's a mad scientist who loves bikinis and thigh-high boots. She has more of a costume now, but she's still out there manipulating to get what she wants. These old panels, I love them so much. Exploitative? Hell yeah. The confidence to wear that? Envious. She can turn a man into a werewolf and then just head straight to the beach. That's convenience. And number 1, Star Sapphire. I'm talking about Carol Ferris. Again, there have been multiple Star Sapphires, but we need Hal Jordan's waifu for lifeu. Made this the cringiest video of all time. She first appears as Star Sapphire in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 16, back in 1962. At first, she is chosen by the Zamorans, enemies of the Guardians, because they want to prove that men are inferior. Her costume evolved into one of the deepest V-necks of all time, and got even more hilarious when the emotion spectrum started and every pink, or I'm sorry, violet lantern had that costume and they were all ladies. They try to explain this as, oh, anyone can join, but most men are not worthy. Okay, sure, Jan. I demand Kyle in this outfit. The world needs it. Officially, not just as fan art. Look it up. It exists. Star Sapphire is a hero now for the most part, but for a while she was a recurring villain and the persona was buried deep within Carol's mind. These costumes, they're a look. Charting their evolution is a trip.
Number 10, Boss Madam Hydra. I mostly wanted to include this alternate version of Madam Hydra because of her cool look in the comics. Though there is something problematic about this version of her, but we'll touch on that later. This version of Madam Hydra is married to MODOK, doesn't like wearing underwear, has a fork-like snake tongue, and wears a dress instead of her standard combat suit. She may have a hotter look, which is why I included her, but she is also kind of problematic. Granted, she is also a villain. As Madam Hydra, she sexually abuses her employees, including the main character from the comic that she appears in, Hank Johnson. Of course, this makes her a pretty terrible person, but she is Madam Hydra, and she is supposed to be a villain in the story even to Hank, who works for Hydra as an agent. So they obviously had to make her story-wise pretty terrible. Anyways, I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that it is her look that got her on the list rather than her treatment of her staff. Number 9, DC Legends Killer Frost. This version of Killer Frost comes to us from the video game DC Legends. She follows a similar origins to her main continuity counterpart, but has a different look. She still wears all black, but instead wears a corseted top and shorts, or a sleeveless romper, if they're connected. She has fur on her arm gauntlets and her boots have a dramatic heel, and she wears garters armed with ice shards. Her earrings also appear to be made of ice. Her legendary form in the game is more of a nod to her comic book appearance, but even this version is fire. Or ice, I guess. This version of Caitlin Snow wears a full-length bodysuit covered in ice spikes with cutouts for her fingers, shoulders, and a small chest cutout. Here her hair appears shorter and is styled upward, causing it to also resemble an ice spike. Number 8, Moonstone. This version of Carla Sofin comes to us from the Earth 7642, the Crossovers. This version of Moonstone was originally a criminal turned government-approved leader of the Thunderbolts. She still has her rivalry with Miss Marvel, but she also has a cool, futuristic-looking costume. Kinda looks like liquid metal, and has a chest cutout that also shows off her cleavage and just the top of Moonstone's abdomen. Abs. Also, shiny things are so sexy. I love some shiny things. Guess I'm like Kaylee and Firefly. Number 7, Heath Ledger. Heath's take on the Joker was not only one of the best cinematic interpretations, but was also one of the hottest. While the brilliant makeup Ledger wore made him look more rough, whose look was created by the makeup artist genius that is John Caglione Jr., the fact remains that under the makeup was Heath Ledger's gorgeous face. But Ledger's reputation as a charming, gorgeous man aside, there was something super sexy about the motives of this version of the Joker, the character itself. Joker saw himself as less of a villain and more of an agent of chaos. And while as human beings we generally prefer for our surroundings to be stable, reliable, and somewhat static, it is for that same reason that the idea of anarchy and chaos often draws us in. There was something beautiful, if not deranged, about the way Ledger and Nolan's Joker perceived the world and his role in it. Number 6, Assassin Wear Catwoman. This version of Catwoman comes to us from a medieval sort of fantasy world. In fact, the same world as the previous Poison Ivy I was just talking about. She is an assassin paid in gold by this world's Killer Croc to take out their reality's Batman. This version of Catwoman wears more armor on her arms than her body, and prefers to run around the city of Gotham with her mane of dark hair loose and flowing, and a very torn up version of her full body latex catsuit. Her armor gauntlets have claws and spikes attached, matching her buckled and spike covered pointed boots. Her mask also sports realistic and dramatic cat-like ears. In fact, this version of Catwoman also appears to be part werecat possibly, as she can also be seen with her head drawn back, face up as she howls at the moon above. Number 5, White Knight. In the White Knight reality, it ends up being Joker who becomes the hero. After being cured of his insanity, he decides Batman has gone too far, is also deranged, and needs to be stopped. This version of the Joker immediately returns to his Harley to make up for years of abuse and finally be the stand-up guy that she deserved the whole time, only to find out she isn't even really Harley Quinn, but an imposter. His abuse had driven the real Harley Quinn away years ago, but the real Harley does return to him, and together the two try to fix their relationship, transforming it into a healthier one. Harley agrees to help Jack Napier, the former Joker, and Jack resists his darker thoughts, keeping them at bay with medication and Harley's support. There is something both sweet and endearing about seeing this journey where Jack works to get better and actually become a hero of sorts that draws you in. Number 4, Harleen. This version of Harley comes to us from the DC Black Label book Harleen, with stunning artwork by Stephen Sedgwick. It's easy to see what makes this version of Harley so attractive. The art is a huge part of her appeal here, but this is also a steamy exploration of Harley's origin story, how she went from studying the Joker to falling for him, as she herself was lost to madness. It's like a weird, sexy story about a psychotic break, which is just all very Harley, to be honest. DC Black Label is also meant to be a more mature label for DC, which allows it to push the envelope when it comes to its series subject matter.
Number 3, Giganta. Are you all here for the Vor, the giant lady? Do you like a lot of women that you have to look up to even to see her waist? Well then, here comes Giganta. She first debuted in Wonder Woman Volume 1, number 9 back in 1944, and was created by William Moulton Marston, so you know that there was some level of kink involved. The man liked what he liked and wanted you to know about it. She was an ape who was mutated into a beautiful and giant woman. This was her first origin. Her newer origin is a bit more complicated, but still involved a gorilla and mind transference. Here she eventually transfers herself into a strong woman named Olga, who has size-changing abilities. People are into Giganta. She's been adapted numerous times. I found her through the Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Number 2, Pamela Isley. This version of Pamela comes to us from DC Bombshells. I know we have already talked about an alternate version of this villain, but this one is also so stunning, and I'm such a huge Poison Ivy fan, who isn't, that I had to also include her. Poison Ivy in the DC Bombshells universe was a smuggler working with the alternate version of Catwoman. Eventually, the Nazis took over her home city of Calais in France. Unhappy about then being forced to work for the Nazis instead, she ended up brewing and wearing a potent perfume whose scent was so strong that it made the Nazis pass out, allowing her to kill them and get revenge and escape. However, the perfume also turned her skin green, just how she got her classic iconic look in this alternate world. Number 1, DCEU Harley Quinn. Now, I couldn't do a list about hot female supervillains without talking about the brilliant and stunning talent that is Margot Robbie. Robbie portrays Harley Quinn in the DCEU films, and despite Suicide Squad not being as big of a success as the studio had hoped, her performance of Harley still managed to wow audiences. Margot Robbie just seems to really enjoy playing the character, and also seems to have a brilliant understanding of just what craziness makes Harley tick. Whether she's rocking her daddy's little monster shirt and sequin shorts in Suicide Squad, or kicking butt in various jaw-dropping, bright and bold outfits in Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, she is magic to watch on the screen. Nothing like someone as badass as Margot Robbie playing someone as badass as Harley Quinn. It's just a match made in hotness heaven.
Number 10, Maker. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Ultimate Universe is awesome. Hulk in this universe is actually quite a bit scarier, at least to me. You know who else is scarier? Reed Richards, the Maker. The Maker is the Reed Richards of the Ultimate Universe, who is evil. He's part of a group of superpowered beings alongside Hulk, Human Torch, Kang, and Quicksilver, who are called the Dark Ultimates. They are essentially villains together, and Hulk and Maker are actually kind of on the same team. Maker actually battles Hulk in a more psychological way, when he calms one of his rampages and convinces him he's being used by S.H.I.E.L.D. After a whole whack of confusing comic booky stuff, the Ultimates all team up and save the day, and then travel the cosmos hunting down the Maker. Number 9. The Leader. It's a great name, honestly. The Leader. Nice. Rightfully so, too. This guy is one of the Hulk's oldest rivals. Samuel Stearns was a janitor at a chemical facility where he unfortunately also had an incident involving gamma radiation. Samuel's gamma mutations gained him a super genius level intelligence, along with some telepathy. He also has the gamma ability of self-resurrection. There is actually an instance in Immortal Hulk number 39 in which he physically consumes the intelligence of another man, Brian Banner. But we don't know if this is a normal ability or a kind of mental representation of him consuming another person's knowledge, since he was in the below place at the time. The leader fights with Bruce on so many different occasions, but the Immortal Hulk story is the one I'm really into right now. You should check it out if you haven't before. Number 8, Maestro. The Maestro is technically Hulk himself, only an alternate version, one who lived through a nuclear apocalypse. He has the intelligence of Bruce, but basically double the strength of Hulk in his base form. He has easily defeated the Hulk several times, and his existence as a possible future version of the Hulk scares the hell out of Bruce himself. He is what would happen if you took the Hulk and made him evil and power hungry and powered him up. In his timeline, he rules over the megacity of Dystopia, where the remnants of humanity live, and he overthrew the former ruler Hercules not through pure strength, but through deception. He is powerful, ruthless, and just a pretty rude dude. Well, here we are. We meet again. At the end of the 8th point. You know how great you are? Pretty great. When you gingerly press upon that like and subscribe button, it lets us know that this is the kind of content you like to see. So, thanks for doing that. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook too. You can find a little extra content. Alright, let's carry on, shall we?
Number 7, Morlun. Not only has Morlun proven himself to be a formidable foe in various storylines, with him taking on all of the Spider-Verse twice in the Spider-Verse event and Spider-Geddon in the comics, in addition to taking out multiple Spider-Folks / Spider-Totems along the way, but he also went toe-to-toe with Spider-Man in the other. The worst thing / I guess best thing for Morlun fans about this story is how Morlun doesn't just ever go for the 1-2 knockout. Morlun seems to prefer drawing out his victory, teasing his victim if you will, and enjoying Spider-Man's suffering. It's probably because Morlun's used to winning so much, he's used to devouring Spider-Totems, so he's like, we'll just let this play out. At one point, Morlun devours Spider-Man's eye in a fight and beats him to within an inch of his life. However, while this definitely feels like a victorious moment for Morlun and Spider-Man was beat here, he would eventually recover, meaning that Morlun didn't get a straight victory over Spider-Man. In fact, he'd even heal his eye back. But of course, villainous victories rarely ever get to be permanent, so I think we still need to count this one.
Number 6, Nightmare. A mysterious lord of fear. Nightmare is basically an unstoppable demon capable of capturing the astral form or spirit of a person while they are sleeping. Nightmare has been shown to be capable of subduing 2 Earth demigods, an Eternal and an Elder God. That's the kind of power we're talking about. But you can solve any problem when you're an impossibly strong green monster made of pure muscle, right? Nightmare manages to capture Hulk's mind and send him on a rampage against Dr. Stephen Strange. Luckily, the good doctor was able to contact Banner inside the Hulk's mind. I don't really know how one does this, but Banner transformed into the Hulk inside the Hulk's mind and fought off Nightmare. They've clashed a few other times, like when he took off Nightmare's head and stole his horse. Again, I don't know how it works, but it is what it is.
Number 5, Green Lantern. There was some interference on this fight, which as you may have guessed by now usually happens with Harley, but regardless, Harley was definitely in the process of winning when the interference really helped her to crush her enemy, who in this case was Green Lantern Hal Jordan. That's right, Harley won in a cosmic arm wrestling match against Hal. In Harley's little black book in issue number 2, the two characters square off when Harley, after being outbid for a genuine Green Lantern ring online, instead gets her hands on something better, a black and red lantern ring. How fitting. It is a combined ring formed from both colors of lanterns. In the end, red and black lantern Harley defeats Hal only to have her ring taken. Hal knocked out and is of course kind of forced to don his Green Lantern ring in order to help save the day. Another fun team up for the books, or the little black book, I suppose I should say.
Number 4, Thanos. Thanos is an interesting one, and we're talking without the Infinity Gauntlet. See, he is exceedingly strong, so much so that he can stand toe-to-toe with Hulk, at least at Hulk's base strength. Thanos tends to have the advantage in most of their conflicts, using his intelligence and martial skill to take the win more often than not. We see an excellent example of this in the MCU's Infinity War, even if it was a stupid excuse for Hulk not to show up for the rest of the movie. The two of these guys have traded wins pretty evenly, but Thanos has the advantage in my mind. If you have the time, check out the Thanos vs. Hulk 4-part story. It's a cool story involving Annihilus, and it leads right into Thanos the Infinity Relativity, which is also a really fun read.
Number 3, Kingpin. There are a few times that Kingpin has beaten Spider-Man throughout the comics and alternate universes that we have explored. At one point he actually manages to kill MJ in a what-if version of Back in Black, and while Spider-Man manages to hunt him down and even kills him, in the end Kingpin's actions turn Spider-Man into a villain. So I'd still consider that a win for Kingpin. But what I'd really like to focus on here is the time that Kingpin managed to kill Spider-Man in Sony's groundbreaking animated film Into the Spider-Verse, one of my favorite films of all time. Here, Kingpin manages to actually kill Peter Parker, the current Spider-Man of Miles Morales' universe. Although Miles would also learn of alternate universes with their own Spider-Men, Spider-Girls, and even Spider-Pigs. He would also learn of his newfound powers and himself have to protect the city as a new Spider-Man. But still, when it came to the Peter Parker of his reality, Kingpin killed him. He dead. He dead. So dead. Never coming back.
Number 2, Galactus. He's a cosmic being who goes around eating planets, and he thinks he can try to come to Earth and pull that nonsense? We have a Hulk. Earth's dinner menu is no longer available. Oh, just kidding. The Hulk has not won against Galactus, and they've never really had a one-on-one fight. It's safe to say that of all the heroes on Earth, Hulk is maybe one who could make Galactus notice him though. But that's likely as far as it will go. Just like with Surtur, in theory he could win if he got angry enough, but we just haven't had an example of that. And it would have to be quite the insane level of power for Hulk to take the win. Hulk does actually become the Herald of Galactus at one point when he becomes Worldbreaker Hulk in What If World War Hulk, and it is just insane. Number 1, the One Below All. In the Immortal Hulk storyline, Hulk is transported to the Below Place, which is the realm of the One Below All. Now, just to give some context, in Marvel Comics there's a character called the One Above All, who hasn't really been seen all too often, but it essentially is the equivalent to God, or the Creator. Now we have gods like Odin and Zeus and Thor in Marvel Comics, but this is different. It is like the God of everything, the supreme ruler of creation and compassion. It's even been represented as the writers of Marvel at one point, to give you an idea. So the One Below All is the antithesis to this, the personification of destruction and hate. The One Below All is trapped in the Below Place and manifests in realities through Gamma. Basically, this means that Hulk and the other Gamma mutated beings have fractions of the One Below All's power. In an alternate future, it would actually take over Bruce Banner's body and use his power to devour the cosmic entity Eternity, and eventually it would eradicate all life in the multiverse. Luckily, this is prevented in the Immortal Hulk storyline, but I'm telling you, go read this.
Number 10, Electro. Electro, even in his first appearance in issue 9 of the original Amazing Spider-Man series, was beating Spider-Man. At least, initially. When Spider-Man first meets Electro, he doesn't know what to do, and Electro gets away a few times before Spider-Man manages to stop him. At one point, Spider-Man even reaches out to try and grab Electro. Not a great idea. While Electro is in his electric shock condition, his words, not mine, it turns out touching him is deadly. Spider-Man survives the great electric shock he is given, but is forced to modify his costume in order to take on Electro in the future. He adds on rubber slippers and gloves, and likely in the future would make modifications to his costume, adding in rubber insulation in case he came up against the villain again, which he would many times, because yeah, that's only issue 9. It goes on for a lot longer than issue 9. Number 9, Mephisto. Mephisto might not win in the most obvious ways, but he definitely is always sneakily on the up and up when it comes to him versus heroes. Any heroes really, Spider-Man included. In the case of Mephisto versus Spider-Man, that sounded more legal than I intended, but I guess we are dealing with binding contracts. Mephisto ended up helping Peter to get what he needed, but at a price. He required in exchange Peter's marriage to MJ, which for comic book continuity meant undoing that rocky but ongoing union. Spider-Man got what he wanted. Aunt May was safe and his identity was a secret once more, but I don't think he really realized what he was giving up until he experienced it. MJ didn't even seem to recall their marriage, although lately it seems to be implied that she might have known more about their past than she's let on. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you love it when I talk about villains, I love talking about villains, then be sure to show that love by giving this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out here. I'm not just saying that. They don't just pay me to say that. This is the truth. Number 8, Chameleon. In his first appearance, Chameleon left Spider-Man running away in tears, ruining the day he ever became Spider-Man. Chameleon may have been apprehended in the end of issue number 1 of Amazing Spider-Man, but somehow it still felt as though he came out on top. Dang it, because Chameleon, he's a villain, so he shouldn't win. Although I am kind of rooting for him sometimes. During their conflict, Chameleon attempted to make it seem as though Spider-Man was up to no good, impersonating him while committing acts of thievery and fleeing from the police. Oh no! Even once Spider-Man managed to catch him, it still seemed as though Chameleon might get away. Fortunately, Spider-Man had his spider sense to let him know something was up. He managed to get away from Chameleon, but it was only because Chameleon's disguise had become damaged in the fray that the villain was caught at all. So Spider-Man didn't even really win that day. It was more just like Chameleon made a mistake. And I was like, dang it. Now it's revealed who I am because you can see the Spider-Man suit underneath and I was impersonating Spider-Man. How embarrassing.
Number 7, Birds of Prey. Never mind just beating Black Canary, at one point Harley Quinn manages to evade the entire Birds of Prey team, including Renee Montoya in the Black Label limited series, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. This comic gives us an alternate story for what would happen with their team up in comparison to the DCEU film. Instead of tracking down a diamond for Black Mask so that she can avoid him killing her, here Harley is aiming to take down her enemies in Gotham and ends up teaming up with the Birds of Prey to do so. But it turns out initially, neither they or the GCPD want Harley in Gotham, as she's a liability. After her brief team up with the Birds of Prey in issue number 1, she ends up captured by Renee Montoya, but gives her and the birds the slip in issue number 2, escaping custody with a secret ally by tunneling out of a restaurant bathroom. This iteration of the team includes Black Canary, Huntress, and Cassandra Cain, who we learn is actually filling in for Barbara Gordon, who's out with a broken leg. Also, if you saw the Birds of Prey film, and regardless of how you felt about it, this is a comic you should read. It's really funny, it's really great. I think it's really fun. Everything Black Label is usually pretty good. Usually.
Number 6, the Lizard. While Lizard doesn't do anything crazy like succeed in completely killing Spider-Man or anything like that, he does beat him in the race against time to save his friend, Dr. Curt Connors, who, is also the Lizard. In the story Shed, the Lizard ends up taking over before Spider-Man can get there to try and stop it. Spider-Man arrives far too late as the Lizard seems to have permanently gained dominance after devouring Curt Connors' son against his own will. This victory would be one that would not only haunt Spider-Man but the Doctor as well. He would end up finding a way to cure himself of his lizard brain but become stuck in his lizard form, kept in a containment cell for his crimes, but unable to bring himself to reveal Spider-Man that he had finally cured himself mentally of his reptilian half. This whole thing is just like a super big Lizard win in my mind, because even when Connors frees himself of the Lizard, he's still stuck in the lizard form, and he still is like, I feel too guilty to even be able to tell people what's really going on. So the Lizard really won, even though he was gone.
Number 5, Onslaught. After Magneto used his powers to rip the adamantium out of Wolverine's body, Professor Xavier snapped and shut down the mind of Magneto. In the process of this, Xavier absorbed all the anger, grief, and lust for vengeance from Magneto's mind, which molded with every long-suppressed negative feeling the Professor had endured during the last 30 years. This resulted in a personality forming within Xavier, known as Onslaught, that would eventually separate to become a separate entity all on its own. Onslaught was incredibly powerful, and all the Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four could not take him. That's when Bruce Banner's Hulk said, "Hold my beer," and told Phoenix to turn off the Bruce personality inside his head. She did, and the Savage Hulk beat Onslaught so hard he destroyed his impenetrable armor, allowing Thor to land a massive blow and the heroes to take the win.
Number 4. Kraven. Kraven's Last Hunt is a story that forever sticks out in comic book history. Especially in Spider-Man's history, it is a dark tale where Kraven finally captures his most prized prey, Spider-Man. What's more, it's also implied he kills Spidey. He then proceeds to take Spider-Man's place, proving once and for all that not only is he capable of capturing and killing the hero, but also aiming to prove that he's better than Spider-Man by beating down all his villains brutally. In the end, we learn that Spider-Man was not actually dead, but in a comatose, death-like state all this while. He returns and Kraven acknowledges that while he seemingly won to do what Spider-Man does while keeping to his moral code is actually an impressive feat. Something that Kraven likely wouldn't actually be able to do. His final hunt complete, it's then implied that Kraven takes his own life.
Number 3. Wonder Woman. Harley's Little Black Book really is a treat of a mini team-up series. If you're a Harley fan and you haven't read this one yet, or at least dipped your toe in, I highly recommend it. Back in issue number 1 of the series, Harley manages to defeat Wonder Woman by catching her unawares and successfully kidnapping her. Of course, Harley actually is aiming to do this for Wonder Woman's own good, and is in fact a big fan of hers, as we find out. So it isn't a malicious defeat at all. Still though, using sleeping gas, Harley manages to incapacitate Wonder Woman and swaps clothes with her in an attempt to impersonate her. In the end, this results in a glorious team up of the two badass ladies fighting side by side.
Number 2. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock actually succeeds in taking Spider-Man's place, not just by impersonating him, but by actually swapping bodies with the hero. That the two swap bodies, wah 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 wah, with Peter ending up stuck in the dying form of Doc Ock and Doc Ock's mind now within the young and superpowered body of Spider-Man. Oh my goodness. Eventually he would relinquish this form, giving it back to Peter when he realized he was incapable of making the tough decisions required of a more heroic spirit. But for a time, we'd come to know this version of villain and hero combined as Superior Spider-Man. And if you're wondering, but wait a minute, didn't Peter die in Doc Ock's body? Yes, but also his consciousness lived still on in his mind. It's a little confusing, but if you read it, it makes sense. It's like comic book confusing, just if you are explaining it quickly to someone in a list. Number 1. Green Goblin. You can take Peter's body, you can take his mind, you can ruin his reputation, but one of the worst things you can ever do to him is to break his heart. There are many ghosts that haunt Peter Parker, but one of the most meaningful ones to this day remains that of Gwen Stacy. Gwen was Peter's childhood sweetheart. Before he and MJ were together and were a thing, he was with Gwen, who was also a science enthusiast and academic like Peter. Gwen ended up being taken hostage by the Green Goblin and thrown from a bridge. When Peter as Spider-Man went to save her with his web shooters, it's implied that his own attempt to do so was what killed her. The tension from his web caused her neck to snap. Norman Osborn has remained one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains to this day, and for many, the moment Green Goblin killed Gwen Stacy was where this shift really happened for his character, making him Spider-Man's greatest and most feared nemesis.
Number 10. Captain Carrot. These two fought it out in the two-parter Convergence Harley Quinn. After all, it would take a melding of multiversal realities in order for these two to even be able to fight one another, as Captain Carrot hails from the alternate Earth of Earth 26. While this fight might not seem like anything to celebrate, it should be noted that Captain Carrot is actually pretty powerful. He possesses one of the most epic powers, I think, of all time, that of cartoon physics. I don't know about you, but being able to defy the law of physics that govern matter and molecules in our world sounds pretty powerful to me. While the physical kind of fight came to a stalemate, in the end it would appear as though Harley won without really meaning to when she offered Captain Carrot snacks from her friend Poison Ivy's garden. In other words, those carrots are probably all kinds of toxic. Although Harley also joined Captain Carrot in a quick snack, the poison would not actually affect her, as thanks to Ivy she has total immunity. Captain Carrot, however, looked like he wasn't doing great. He was like, ugh, poisonous garden. Number 9. Damian Wayne. Harley Quinn made quick work of Damian Wayne, aka Robin, in the Harley Quinn animated series. Here Harley was looking to make a name for herself as a supervillain and leader of her own criminal gang, striking out on her own. She wanted to take Joker's spot as Batman's top nemesis, and even managed to steal Batman's Batmobile in hopes of baiting him out. Unfortunately for Harley, it wasn't Bats who answered the call, but instead Bats Jr., aka Damian Wayne. Harley was very disappointed and refused to even really fight Damian, despite him claiming that he was a more than worthy nemesis for her, being trained by birth by the League of Assassins. Harley defeated him far too easily, hanging him by his cape on a meat hook in the warehouse that they were in. Although Damian of course later embellished the story and insisted that Harley and he were official nemeses. Also, I love Damian Wayne in the Harley Quinn animated series. I think it's my favorite incarnation of Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne fans, please don't hate me. I mean that with the utmost respect. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, more Harley lists, yes, let's have it happen, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Also comment below with your favorite Harley issues or Harley stories. Number 8. Black Canary. Although Black Canary ultimately prevents the fight from coming to a close in the Injustice universe, Harley is definitely about to win when this happens, and would have been crowned victor. I mean, after all, she is mid-swing with her hammer just coming down almost on Black Canary's head there. However, Black Canary at the moment of her demise halts the fight as she's about to be sick to her stomach. Harley, recognizing Black Canary's morning sickness as a symptom of her being pregnant, decides to call the whole thing off, refusing to fight someone who is pregnant due to her own history. Although a moment ago, Harley was ready to smash Black Canary's head in with her giant hammer, now the two women bond over their shared experience. It turns out that while Black Canary is pregnant with the now deceased Green Arrow's child, Harley was once pregnant and gave birth to the Joker's child in secret. Honestly, this is a really fun fight that also just turns into a really heartfelt moment, which is kind of great.
Number 7. Juggernaut. Cain Marko, the avatar of the god Sidorak. Cain is a Thor-level threat to the Marvel Universe, wielding the abilities granted to him by the Gem of Sidorak. Juggernaut has almost limitless super strength and stamina. He has a nearly invulnerable force field, he's immortal, and when he does somehow get damaged, he has a ridiculous healing factor. His main ability, however, is irresistible force embodiment, meaning once he begins to advance in a certain direction, it is virtually impossible to halt his movements. Guess who is one of the only characters to actually stop him? Thor! Yes, but shut up! Hulk! Hulk was one of them when he was War Hulk. Gosh, I gotta stop getting ahead of myself.
Number 6. Shazam. Another hero who Harley ends up taking on and surprisingly defeating in Injustice, we are talking about Shazam. I know, pretty impressive. Harley ends up fighting Shazam as both are on opposite sides of the superhero conflict, with Shazzy siding with Supes and Harl's allying herself with Batman. The two fight in year 5, but also fought previously in year 3, with Harley taking full advantage of Shazam's sweet naivete, tossing her hammer at him, which it turned out was actually a bomb. That time around, the hammer explodes in his face, knocking him out.
Number 5. Mysterio. Mysterio recently got a pretty big win in the MCU, in typical Mysterio style, I must say. While he hasn't been doing too hot in the comics lately, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio managed to earn Spider-Man's trust and even infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D., making them believe he was a hero from an alternate world. I'm not going to lie, even I personally wanted to believe it. It turned out this was not true, and while his backstory was a little different here, Mysterio here was still a master at illusion and a full-on villain. In the end, Quentin Beck would seemingly die during a confrontation with Spider-Man, but it turns out he had one more trick up his sleeve. And at the end of the film, we see a video recording of Beck that incriminates Spider-Man and also reveals his true identity as Peter Parker. He's gonna be in a lot of trouble in the next movie, I think.
Number 4. Batman. Harley Quinn has beaten Batman on more than one occasion, but for me, one of her most iconic victory moments comes from the Batman animated series, when Harley successfully traps Batman for the Joker and is planning to basically waste him. Of course, although Harley almost successfully ends Bat's life, he manages to prey on her insecurities regarding her relationship with the Joker. He convinces Harley that the Joker will be upset with her if she just wastes him without contacting him or telling him anything about it. So she calls him up, and then when he arrives, it's revealed that Batman was actually right. In provoking a fight between the two villains, Batman is able to escape, but in this scenario, if Joker hadn't been involved, Harley would have likely been completely successful in executing her Puddin's plan. This victory not only proves Harley's might next to Joker, but also is a heartbreaking one, as it illustrates how harmful her relationship with the Joker is, and how its toxicity also succeeds in often holding her brilliance and her individualism hostage.
Number 3. Surtur. We mentioned the MCU in the last point, but I thought I'd go full force into it. In Thor Ragnarok, we get to see Hulk attack Surtur, the fire giant, as he is destroying Asgard with the Twilight Sword. It's actually really awesome. So he has fought Surtur, but how would that go in the comics? That's a good question. Well, we know that Surtur's main purpose is to beat Odin, so he is at least on Odin's level. You know who else is on Odin's level? Zeus. And Zeus and Hulk have had a bit of a scuffle once upon a time, which didn't go well for the Hulk. But then again, you take one of Hulk's more powerful forms like Worldbreaker Hulk or Heart of the Monster Hulk, and Hulk takes the win every time.
Number 2. Superman. We don't really know how, and she didn't do it alone, but in the Black Label limited series, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, in issue number 1, we open up on Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn being served by Superman. Together they seem to have made him their prisoner by threatening the life of Jimmy Olsen, and Superman is waiting on them in return for his whereabouts so that he can run off and save Jimmy. Of course, it all turns out that this is part of a dream, but it's a fun sequence and could actually be based on real events in this Black Label reality. Black Label comics typically happen outside of continuity, just FYI. Whether or not this was real though, Harley also took on Supes in a boxing match and won in Harley's Little Black Book in the second to last issue in issue 5. Number 1. The Trinity. If you thought the Man of Steel was too much for Harley Quinn to take on, obviously you would be wrong. And you'd actually be super wrong about that, as Harley has not only taken on Superman multiple times, but also in one fight managed to take on Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman all in one go. The holy trinity of DC supers, if you will. This all went down in Heroes in Crisis, when the superhero trio was trying to track Harley down as they believed she was behind the mass murder that went down at the Sanctuary. Harley made quick work of the team, using Batman's contingency plans even against his allies, and the team's love and affection for one another to her advantage.